Hello, Dave.
Hello, Matt. How are you doing?
Better since yesterday.
Why? What happened yesterday?
Well, yesterday they put in my new air conditioner, but for the past week or so, I haven't had AC in my house because my air conditioner was 23 years old and had no refrigerant.
Huh, that kind of defeats the purpose.
That's the breaker kept tripping, and called my dad, because it's an electrical thing. He's an electrician, and he's given me a couple of ideas, and then I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna call the number that's on the furnace for the guys that installed it, and the guy's like, well, it's $105 an hour for us to show up. I'm like, that's fine, just come take a look at it. I'm hoping it's a 5 minute fix, and walked, pulled in the driveway, walked up to it, went, it's 23 years old and has no refrigerator. I'm like, okay, how do I get a new one? And he's like, well, let me get you a quote.
Right?
So yesterday they came and installed it, and now the house is not hotter than outside.
Terrific. Terrific. And what did it cost for the visit in that case at $105 an hour?
They did not charge me for that visit because they were only here for 5 minutes. And they knew they were going to get a lot more money when I buy the unit.
Wasn't that nice of them?
Service with a smile.
There you go. Are we recording?
We are indeed.
Okay, we are recording. It's summer, which is not really peak Please Hold for Dave Sim season, and I decided, well, what the heck? Nobody's listening anyway. I have missed doing my Walter Winchell voice that I was doing for the Service in Hell with a question mark, and missed writing my Walter Winchell voice. So here's my Walter Winchell intro for Please Hold for Dave Sim, August 2023. It's Manly Matt Dow, the Ron Essler lookalike of the Baby Yoda generation, scrappy center for the amok, ensconced in Wisconsin's, not one, but count 'em, two rivers, testosterone-powered metaphysical counterpart to the vivacious, curvaceous, but genetically unrelated DNA, Delta November Alpha tests do not lie, Paula. The buck stops here, loud and proud. I done it, and I'm proud I done it. You want to make something of it? Progenitor of, come on, take another little part of my adolescent heart now, baby, Janice Pearl, and prepubescent Malibu Barbie got nothing on me, Natasha. Reprobate, ne'er-do-well, Vice Regent in Residence and Grand Lord of stately Dow Manor. And now here he is with Dave Sim.
It's better than the intro I wanted to do.
I was thinking it would make a nice business card, but it would be a very large business card.
Or really small type.
Really small type.
I was thinking, I'm like, I kind of want to do the opening of the 70s Incredible Hulk show with, Dr. David Banner and the whole thing. And I'm going, I don't think Dave would get it. So, I think I'll let it go. But no, yours is a lot better.
No, I would have absolutely no recognition of the Hulk show. I only know that Bill Bixby was Dr. David Banner, and he was from My Favorite Martian first of all, and then Courtship of Eddie's father.
My favorite part, a couple Please Holds ago, or maybe it was just through a muck. It was through a muck. Somebody bought something, and his name was David. I forget the last name, but it sounded like one of the Bill Bixby. Because the deal with the Bill Bixby Hulk was he was David Banner, not Bruce Banner, because as Stan Lee kept telling everybody the story, it was Bruce isn't a macho enough name. To which Stan would reply, "What about Bruce Lee?"
Oh, I never heard that one before.
And then later on, it was, "And what about Bruce Willis?" But so they changed it to David because Bruce was too effeminate, and so every episode he was David, and he would use a pseudonym, and every single one of his pseudonymous last names started with B. Like he was Bennett and Benning, and I'm trying to, and like I went on the internet and found a list of them because the guy who bought whatever, I'm like it. I'm pretty sure he was a David Banner alias, and I looked. I was surprised. Nope, it was not one. It was close, but it wasn't. It wasn't exact. And I emailed him, and he's like, "Yeah, I haven't heard that since I was 12." And I'm thinking, I don't know if that's an insult or a compliment.
Probably a little of both, if I had to guess. If I had to guess. Okay, as you've written here, I believe it's your turn to reminisce about Seiler. It is indeed. And longtime listeners will remember the cliffhanger that I left on this one, which was the karaoke bar reopened in Minneapolis during lockdown, and this is the more I try to tell this story, the more I go, this is all pretty idiosyncratic Dave Sim thinking stuff. So I'm going to have to go like just a bit at a time. So the karaoke bar reopening and Jeff making a point of it to me, and Jeff being himself an exception in the sense that of the Cerebus readership that I have and that I had at that time, Jeff was my most frequent phone correspondent in terms of leaving phone messages. So that's one of those, when you live the kind of life that Dave Sim has lived and that Dave Sim is living, all of these things take shape as, well, okay, this is what makes this thing distinct from that thing. This is what makes this other thing distinct from these other things. That's what I watch for, is one of these is not like the other. So it's sort of calling attention to itself in that sense. So the frequency of phone messages that I would get that started, Dave, it's Jeff. And then Jeff would go on to basically be annoying, or at least sometimes irritating. Most of the time, he had sort of an annoying edge to him, but I didn't give it any toehold with me. But I was always aware, okay, Jeff Seiler is the exception to my readership, who are usually very, very, very good about leaving me alone. It's if I'm going to leave a phone message for Dave Sim, I'm going to make sure that I have something that I really think Dave Sim needs to know, not something that starts, Dave, it's Jeff. So coupled with the karaoke bar reopening, which already we were in a year into, in fact, the exceptionalism of what the response was to the pandemic. It's like karaoke bars were completely out of the question because, as you will remember from our previous episode, droplets were going to kill us all. This was why all of us had to be locked into our homes and hide under our beds. And if we did, God forbid, go out somewhere, we had to make sure that we were all 6 to 8 feet apart. And if we were indoors, even more than that. Do you remember this? Do you remember the debate about how far apart people needed to be safe? That some people said like 6 feet is fine, and it's like no, and they got video of the droplets, and the droplets can go up to whatever 30 feet, and it's like, well, okay, but we're not gonna. You can't have a metropolitan area where everybody has to be 30 feet apart. So that already, for somebody who thinks the way I do, where it's like, well, okay, if things are going to change that drastically overnight, that calls attention to itself. I have no idea what's going on here, and I'm happy to speculate on what's going on here. But the mere fact of this is what we're suddenly obsessing about for no discernible reason that I could see. This is interesting to me. Like I say, the draconian social distancing that I wrote down here, and then. Again, another element to it is the subjective angle of it. The fact that this is happening to me. Jeff Seiler is happening to me in a way that isn't happening with the other Service fan, and isn't happening between Jeff Seiler and everybody else. So that kind of calls attention to itself. So, and Jeff is from Minneapolis, and Jeff makes a point of telling me that Minneapolis has okayed the reopening of either karaoke bars generally or Minneapolis's one karaoke bar. Do you remember Jeff talking about like the karaoke bar was a big deal for him?
There were times where he would post things and he would say, "Okay, I have to go because my car is coming to get me to take me to karaoke tonight." And it was like it was one of them. It was Jeff. There's always a little detail that nobody's really going to care about, but he's going to make a point of saying something so that when it comes up later and, well, how could you guys forget that I like whatever? And it's like, well, Jeff, none of us really care.
But you take my point exactly, that these things call attentions to themselves, that karaoke suddenly loomed large in Jeff Seiler's legend, and like you say, he would make a point of it where he didn't really need to make a point of it. Just if you're done writing your post, just stop writing and go and do something else. Don't say I have to go to karaoke tonight. So there was that element to it. So the way that my mind works with those sorts of things is, okay, these are in a specific category. We've got Jeff Seiler, we've got Minneapolis, and we've got weird karaoke exceptionalism that has now asserted its existence. And it's like, I'm not curious enough about it to, like you say, research it in depth or anything. It's just, this is calling attention to itself, duly noted. For some reason, Minneapolis, in a distinction from every other city that I could think of in North America that I was aware of, certainly of Kitchener, nobody was reopening for karaoke at that point. So you have, okay, here's here's the inexplicable lockdown in the first place. I don't really think the droplets are coming to get us. But, we can explain that away as, feminist hypochondria. All of the health authorities are now, at the highest levels are mostly occupied by women, and they tend far more towards hypochondria than men do, and consequently, this is the best reason that I can come up with for what I consider this extreme overreaction to COVID-19. But it's not something that I'm really obsessing about. It's just the whole world's going kind of strange, and definitely at least 180 degrees of separation from how Dave Sim thinks and perceives reality. What followed from that was the George Floyd situation, where definitely a terrible racist tragedy, but in terms of my mental filing system, where I'm putting things, particularly at that time where everything has been reduced to a virtual standstill, and a lockdown is a lockdown is a lockdown. It's a prison term. So it's like, okay, for some reason we have now turned all of the G7 countries into prison camps, and we're now using prison camp terms. That's fine. I've lived with weirder things in my time, and I can adjust to this as long as nobody's coming into the off White House to get me, who's a health authority. I'm more than happy to just let this play itself out at whatever level, feminist hypochondria at that level, that universal level, is going to play it out. But it is all bookmarked. So when the George Floyd thing happened, I think the most noteworthy thing about that, apart from the horrific episode itself, was the fact that suddenly the same people who had been telling us that we all have to be at least 8 feet apart from each other, because being any closer than 8 feet apart means we have these dangerous droplets flying all over the place, and consequently people who don't stay that far apart are committing acts of genocide against their fellow citizens, or potentially committing acts of genocide against their fellow citizens. All of those same people suddenly poured out into the streets en masse, bunched together, and marching in, Black Lives Matter protests. And it's like, okay, again, in my frames of reference, I go category by category. This category, the Jeff Seiler is the exception and is contacting me. Jeff Seiler is from Minneapolis. Jeff Seiler is calling attention to the fact that the karaoke bars are opening, and he is now going to karaoke, definitely in violation of what I understand is the spirit of the COVID-19 lockdown. And now what we have done is leveled up. We've gone up a level from that, where that exceptionalism that I've noted, Jeff Seiler, Minneapolis karaoke bar, is now Jeff Seiler, Minneapolis, George Floyd, and now worldwide lockdown violations that the people that are doing that conscious violation seem to have no conscious awareness of the irony of it, and the hypocrisy of it, that You can't believe this thing over here 100% at this moment, and then 24 hours later go, all of that's off the board. We have to go and do this thing that completely violates all of that, and and do it in such a way that everybody that's going WTF can't say anything, because it's like, if you say anything about these people violating the lockdown so egregiously, the only explanation for you doing that is that you're a racist.
Right. I'm just thinking back because I remember when the social distancing was 6 feet, and they came out with this diagram of stay 6 feet apart from everyone, and it had an equilateral triangle where all three sides were labeled 6 feet, and somebody turned into a meme of that diagram, and then Pythagoras giving up what the hell look, because Pythagorean theorem, it's 6 feet, 6 feet, and 8.25 feet. So that's where we were telling everybody 8.25 feet. That way you're safe.
Right. And it's like going, this is really basic geometry. You're trying to tell everybody on the planet how they have to live their lives different from how they were living their lives 72 hours ago. And you can't even get the basic geometry right.
I mean, and then I remember my brother took my niece to a protest, and I'm like, what, you're doing what? And I was like, well, yeah, they're having a protest, and and I if you don't stand up, blah blah. I'm going, okay, how are you gonna stay 6 feet away from everybody? And it's, well, we're gonna wear masks. I'm like, okay, you're gonna not come near my house for a couple of months. I mean, let's just be realistic here. I mean, I understand bad things happened. We the right to protest. Yes, I can understand the impulse to want to do that. I just, I'm the guy that showed up at work wearing a mask, and everybody's like, why do you got a diaper on your face? And I'm like, because my wife's a nurse. She does home care. She's got elderly patients that if they get this, they'll probably die. Technically, if I don't wear a mask and I catch it and I give it to her and she gives it to them, I'm an accessory to murder. And people were, and like, my boss got in my face about that, like, that's not true. And I'm going, okay, legally, maybe not, but morally, I mean, I could have prevented, it's the Spider-Man thing of, you could have stopped the burglar who ended up killing your uncle, but you decided, I'm only looking out for number one. Well, now what are you going to do, Pete?
Right. Right. And it's also there's never a control group. It's like you make your decision, you make your choices and you take your chances. And there's no, well, what if I had done this? What if Matt Dow had said, no, I'm just not going to wear a mask. And, well, we don't know because Matt wore a mask.
I mean, it was getting kind of funny too, because like the T Public site that we have the Amok store through was started selling masks, and I'm like, oh, cool, I can buy a nice mask instead of having the one that my mom made out of an old pair of my sleep pants. Because I needed a fabric mask, and my mom found a pattern, and she had a bunch of scrap fabric. Well, she had this pair of pants that I had outgrown that had devils on them. So I was walking around with devils on my face. And I'm like, okay, but it doesn't look the greatest, and it's not designed 100% the way. So I'll buy one of these pre-made, pre-printed masks. So I got a Miracle Man one with the Miracle Man logo. And it showed up, and it was a little too small for my face. And I'm going, okay, that's $6 I'm never getting back.
Right.
And then at work they gave all of us, as a safety bonus, they gave us tumblers and masks. And it was slightly bigger than the Miracle Man one. I'm going, okay, did you guys think about this when you put the order in? Like, some of us have fat faces. Maybe you want to get the big mask?
Right. Since we're all going to be living this way from now on.
I mean, that the Amok Tea Public Shop pretty much started with I wanted to make a service mouth mask because I thought that'd be funny, and I'm like, this is the kind of thing that we're everyone's got to wear a mask. People are starting to sell them where the mask looks like a face. Let's go. Let's just do the whole nine and see if how many of these we can sell. And yeah, it sold some, but by the time I got them up there, it was well, masks are important, but not really. It's August, it's hot. Do we really want to cover our faces?
Right, right.
And that's, I mean, I do enjoy that, COVID, it quote unquote ended. And I'm going, no, it didn't end. We just kind of all stopped caring.
Yeah,
There's,
yeah.
there's,
And it was that same consensus thing. The, the consensus has been arrived at. And I don't remember anybody discussing this. I don't remember anybody voting on this. I just remember that masks don't do any good, and that lasted for about 3 months, and then no, masks are mandatory.
well,
With no okay, how did you go from the first rationale to the second rationale without letting anybody else, any of the rest of us know that this was taking place? Again, on the assumption that we're all going to be living this way from now on.
well, and it was weird too, because like I wore a mask up until the vaccine came out, and then I got vaccinated, and I'm like, okay, 2 weeks after my vaccination or the second shot, because it was you had to get the one shot and wait a little bit, get a second shot. 2 weeks after that, it's okay. You in theory are fully vaccinated, and you no longer have to worry about it. I'm like, well, I don't have to wear a mask anymore. And somebody at work was like, well, how come you're not wearing a mask? I'm like, I'm vaccinated. And they just kind of looked at me like, why would you do that? It's like, well, I get the flu shot every year for the same reason, because my wife's in healthcare. This is the decision that I need to live with. And everybody was like, and the best part was the people that were going, well, why would you get the vaccine? I'm like, because vaccines work. I didn't get polio as a kid. I didn't get smallpox. There's vaccines, and the people that were most anti-vax at work within 2 weeks caught COVID, and I'm going, see, yes, needles suck. There's very few people who are like, oh, needles are the greatest thing in the universe, but at the same time, you get a little poke, you feel a little sick for a couple days, and then you get on with your life. Or you isolate.
Or you die, or whatever else. Again, there's no control group where you go, okay, how would my life have gone in my case if I had gotten vaccinated? And it's like, I don't know, because I didn't get vaccinated. I didn't, I really didn't think about it. It's just wasn't on my personal radar. Again, this would be a different story if the police came to the front door with the health officials and broke in and went, "I'm sorry, you have to be vaccinated." It's like, well, okay. It's like I'm not gonna try and fight you guys and whatever else. But as long as I'm in here and you're out there, you can do whatever you want. And I'll do whatever I want.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. I mean,
so I'm gonna leave it at that, because again, I'm trying to tell a specific story. So that's the first part of the how I react to things category by category. And to me, it was there was the karaoke situation that then escalated dramatically into the George Floyd situation, from my experience, centered around Jeff Seiler. So that's my Jeff Seiler story for August 2023.
And in October, we're all going to put on our fake vampire fangs for the next part.
You're getting ahead of the story, man.